Okay, Aileen, that's it. We're up and running. You're very welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you on.
How you doing, Kieran? Great to be on. Thanks for the invitation.
No, you're very welcome. So we actually came across you, Aileen, because we actually have some mutual customers, which was interesting. So when we came across a business, we've done a little deep dive and said, okay, that's interesting. There's something I would like to delve into, I think, where we could provide a lot of value, and that's the 12 steps to ease your profits and talk about the business school as a whole. But I suppose to frame that up, can you tell people a bit about yourself and your background and how you ended up dealing with construction companies and the type of construction companies that you generally deal with on a day-to-day basis?
So, Kieran, I've been business coaching for about 15 years now, and I suppose I joined an international coaching organization. The reason I got into business coaching is I grew up in a family business and kind of saw, I suppose, all the good things and the bad things about having running a small business, and it was always something that I was interested in because as family, it was one of those things we worked in as children in the family business. So that's kind of what led me to the interest in it, and then, as I said, through various things, ended up becoming and training as a business coach with an international coaching organization about 15 years ago. And then been working with small businesses ever since, really to kind of help them, business owners, improve their personal and their business performance. And I suppose from the experience of that, just typically the businesses I work with, like they have a team of like starting off about at least 8 people and upwards, 40, 50 sometimes. But generally the sweet spot of the size of business I work with is between 8 and 30 employees. How we started working with construction related businesses, just as it happened, started working with a few heating and plumbing businesses, then kind of got referrals from that. And then I just kind of realized that what I was doing was really kind of helping a lot of construction related businesses and different, either roofing, landscaping, general construction, specialized construction. And then you kind of, the more you work with those type of business owners, that the more knowledge you actually gain. So
at that point there, where you're in that sort of fork in the road point where you're working with sort of SME companies, and then you're starting to gain a bit of traction with construction companies, what were the noticeable differences there between the different, obviously construction businesses, different operations, but in terms of the more thinking about the business owners that come to you, in terms of their mindsets, in terms of how they look at systems and processes, like what were some of the differences you've seen there, but you say traditional SME company versus construction company?
Probably it might be similar with a lot of SMEs. Most business owners start a business because they're experts in the work of the business, the technical aspects of the business. So like I said, an electrician might start an electrical contracting company. A chef starts a restaurant business. A plumber starts heating and plumbing, and that. So they are experts in the work that they do. Not necessarily, and nobody's kind of wakes up and they have all the skills ready to run a business, all the finance side of it, the team development, the leadership, and just everything else that comes with running a business. So that's probably one of the, there's loads of opportunity to kind of learn with construction related businesses, maybe more so because everyone's kind of in a comfort zone with what they're specialized in themselves, and maybe sometimes they don't actually, I suppose, they need to come out of the comfort zone in order to learn all those other different skills. And oftentimes they say like a small business and setting it up is probably the steepest learning curve in personal development, but there's always kind of gaps. So if that,
it's so true. Like a lot of the time you become accidental business owners. So you've started out. Sometimes we decide, I just rather work for myself. Like, so you're not going to open up a business. You're saying, there's probably a few extra bob to be earned if I go self-employed here, and I'll contract into the company. And that might give me the flexibility to contract into a couple of other companies if I wanted to take on a bit of extra work. And I might be able to take my holidays when I want to, and not have to talk to anyone. And that's probably a lot of the mindset where it starts. Just that extra few bob and a bit more flexibility. And next thing you need another lad and that's where it starts. You become this accidental business owner. And I'm interested in that point you've made with 8 people, because that's probably where it starts to get the breaking point. So what starts to happen around that point where companies start to need some help?
I think like what happens is that the business owners tend to get busier and busier, and then they tend to add people, but without the structures and the setup in the background. What happens is they're adding people, but they're still seem to be getting busier and busier, and maybe kind of, instead of being in control of the business, when there is like the owner with maybe 2 lads in a van and it's starting to expand at that point, it just becomes something then that isn't as easy to control. And then their headaches start getting greater and greater because they're not really sure exactly what to do. And then that's when kind of the overwhelm sets in. And they might have started the business to gain more freedom and more money and everything. And then it just kind of nearly becomes, they become trapped by it, and it's not what they want.
Yeah, it was always, I mean, I've got experience here because I've done this exactly what I'm talking about myself. You know, went out subcontract and then a couple of lads, and suddenly the business side of things, you just think, that's that's the weekend's work, and I'll figure that out. And when I get to the weekend, when I get back off the tools, and it's when you look back, and it's such the wrong way to look at it. Like that's a part of it, and a lot of time that the costs involved in that. So the overhead cost of actually running that side of the operation is forgotten about, and you're looking at your bottom line. You're saying, okay, we're doing okay, forgetting about the 20 to 30 hours that you're actually putting in on top of that. And then you go and try to replace that 20, 30 hours when that's a problem. Now you've got to put a wage in, and a lot of the time that's where there's that breaking point never gets fixed. So you've developed this sort of framework, 12 steps to ease your profits, and that's probably what we're talking about here. Is trying to get you're making money, but you're killing yourself doing it, and you're looking at this sort of easier way. So the 12 steps, like I've pulled them up here. The first one is interesting, where you said, before we do anything, before we set off on any systems and processes and leadership and whatever way we want to look at this, it's destination clarity. Can you explain that, please?
Destination clarity is about really kind of deciding what is it that you want to do, where are you going with the business, what is it, first of all, do you need to what do you want for yourself, for your lifestyle, for your family, for, what is that? What are your own personal goals? And when you decide what your personal goals are, then it's easier to decide, well, what kind of business do I need to have to provide that and to fulfill and achieve those personal goals. And oftentimes, as I said, people just avoid that work of thinking. And a lot of the time, by the time I meet them, they're so far kind of down the rabbit hole and they're stuck like in being so busy all the time that they haven't thought about that. I often say people spend more time sometimes planning their holidays or their wedding than they do actually, what needs to happen in their business to provide the life that they have. So that first part there really is, what's the dream as such, and then when we have that in place, it's okay, well, from that, what would I really want? So what are the goals? Then what is the plan that has to be put in place in order to achieve those goals? And then what are the actions that need to be taken to work that plan?
And you're looking at this from a business owner's point of view, as in from a personal point of view, rather than say, what's the company vision? You're sitting down with sort of understanding the person first.
Yes, exactly. Because that's what drives us. That's our why. That's the reason why we're going to actually work on this business. And sometimes, people are, kind of they go with the flow and they have their ladder up against the wrong wall altogether. It's not, maybe they're building a business that's not what they want, or they haven't thought about what they want out of it for themselves, because you just kind of jump on the bandwagon and go with it without actually stepping aside and go, okay, where are we going here? What do I actually want out of this?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, because I've done a lot of big business management stuff myself, and entrepreneurial development and stuff like that. And a lot of the time when we think about this first step that we're talking about today, it's about the business. Like what's the vision for this business, and what's the mission of this business, and what value is the business going to carry? And then I suppose you're twisting that and saying, well, hang on a second, you're the individual that's going to be driving that vision, mission, and value. What do you want? Which is really, really interesting. The second one was financial dashboard. So straight into finance. So I like this one because we do finances, we do construction. I've got a fair amount of research and development done on this particular one. So tell me why that sits there. Obviously, everybody knows we got to know our numbers, and financials are such an important thing to any business. But why does that sit there? What's the thinking of financial dashboard design sitting right after we know where we're going?
Well, the reason is, first of all, is that I suppose when I work with a business owner, I want them to get a return on the investment. Yes, we're in the process of kind of helping them to think about their business in a different way and set up the business to be an asset for the future and all of those different things. At the end of the day, I don't want to be an expensive friend. We need to get a return on the investment. So that's that part there. So we kind of get a visibility of what is actually going on in the business. And the business owners that kind of I met, again, particularly when we talk about, when we come from a construction related business where we're typically, right-brained, creative problem solvers, and things like the finances, and not just even with construction related people who are kind of creative and entrepreneurial tend to kind of not want to focus on the figures. So they feel sometimes it's more complex than it actually is. So this part really is setting up to have that kind of dashboard view of, okay, what's happening in the business. So there's like, where are we making money? Where are we not making money? Just understanding in a very simple way, kind of what numbers do we need to know. So as well as that, then setting up kind of a list of what we call either KPIs or a scorecard, where we kind of say, well, these are the 10 to 15 numbers in the business on a weekly basis that we can say, okay, this indicates how the business is performing. And we really, as a business owner, need to understand these numbers. And as well as that kind of the cash flow forecast. Like I've seen two extremes nearly with business owners that I've started to work with. On the one hand, you have the business owners who basically nearly run the business according to the bank account. If the bank account is okay and they're able to pay everyone and there's no phone calls and they're able to meet wages and it seems to be going up and steadily and it's okay, they don't even want to see it. They will, hand over everything to the accountant. 3 months after the end of the year, they kind of literally come back and say that they meet with the accountant, to look at the top figure, look at the bottom figure, and want to know, okay, how much tax do we need to pay this year? And that's as much as it gets. So that's one extreme.
You have no idea how uneasy that makes me feel, because we deal with, like, we get to work, and it's an absolute privilege because we get to work with a lot of construction companies. We only do finance now. We've transitioned into that niche, and it's all we do is construction costs. But what we get to see is a company in Galway, the company in Cork, the company in Dublin, the company in Donegal has the same set of problems as the company that we deal with in Cape Town or Sydney or Auckland, whatever it might be. And the one problem that I see that I get really uneasy is that problem there that you just talked about. Running businesses based on bank account, like the fact that it's not project based for companies that do projects as a service is baffling to me. And I'm not sure how you can learn as a company. Like how do we know what's a good project? How do we know what's a bad project? How do we know one project is absolutely not hemorrhaging money and the next one is a great project that we should focus all our attention on, because that's underpinning the other two that are bad performing, and we don't know that.
No, and what, like, some of the issues is that the business owners are so involved in the day-to-day running of the business and haven't, we say, kind of found the headspace or the time to actually set things up so they have the time to be able to look at these. And if everything is going right and there's no problems, they tend to kind of, and this is very successful business as well. It's not businesses like that are, just barely getting by. This is kind of happened because even in the very successful businesses, the business owner is still involved in a lot of the different functions. So you'll have that extreme where there's the run in the business according to the bank account. And then you have the other extreme where there might be somebody like who financial, or, they have somebody in the office, either they have their own accountant or they have like somebody looking at the whole invoices, and they might be generating these kind of management reports on a weekly and monthly basis, but they're not actually being used in order to make changes in the business. Like there's just a stack of paperwork kind of happen. And you ask them about that, and they'll say, yeah, we have all our numbers, but they're not actually doing anything to make the difference. And one of the things that when you know the numbers, like if you're getting these numbers 3 months after the end of the year, you can do absolutely nothing about it. If you have these numbers on an ongoing basis, you can. And like the difference between when you can see the percentages, the difference 1% can make in a either a 500,000 turnover business or a 5 million turnover business, it actually adds. And people are kind of running around crazy and trying to get everything done and not really focusing on this part of it, which is, as you can see, it's something. And that's why it's there in that next step, because unless you kind of know, I feel like, that absolutely there's money being left on the table. And there's even there is a business that I was working with, still working with recently, very successful, and the issue that they brought with was like their own time and their own productivity. And they had a very high net profit, and I didn't really think that we could actually do a lot on that side of it. But as we kind of went into it and delved a bit deeper, it was like one project was being really successful, but it was actually supporting other projects, because the overall things look great. But when you dig deep, and they can see then, and they were kind of aware, but didn't know it, didn't have the figures. I mean, you don't have the figures, you cannot make the changes.
Data don't lie. That's the key there. I mean, we could do a whole episode on that one. We actually probably should sometime, because there's a lot of value in it, and there's still a lot of companies that are turning over, and I say turning over, like a lot of money, making small amounts of money, and wondering why are we killing ourselves making turning over so, because the operation that comes with that is massive and stressful.
Yeah.
And they don't actually understand. But if you just break this out, you'll have a clear understanding that particular project over there, forget about it. That particular element of a project, forget about it. Wasting time, sub it out, wasting time. So, I mean, digging into that data and having that financial data in front of you on a dashboard is great. Can I ask a question? And like, I mean, is it literally something that you would set up for the company, or is it this you've given the company the framework in terms of what they like, or make them think about KPIs? Is that the sort of approach?
We kind of start with meet the client where they are with what they have at that point. Sometimes there's no visibility at all. Then sometimes there is some visibility, and then it's to take that out and to have it in a format that that they can actually use to see at a glance, or to make decisions on their level. No, most business owners don't want to be bookkeepers, but they are, they're doing themselves an injustice if they don't learn enough to ask the right questions and to be able to see what these key numbers are. So yeah, it depends on the client and where they are. Yeah. With if that answers the question.
It certainly does. The third one that you go into then is self-management and productivity.
So this is probably literally about time, where they're spending their time. And I suppose instead of calling that time management, I always call it self-management, because this really is, a huge amount about how I work with the business owners is helping them become more awareness. It's, in some ways, it's 70-80% awareness of what's going on, awareness of the finances, awareness of their time, awareness of how they're communicating with their team, all of these different things. So that really is, one thing that stops business owners getting to a point where they are actually starting to work on the business and put these things in place that will make it easier for them. They'll make the money, but make it in an easier way. One of the things is the time. And they all say, I don't have time to do this. It's not, I want to do this. I know I have to make changes, but I just can't. So if they don't work with me through this part and apply what we teach and the process that I bring them through, they're never going to be able to implement the rest of the things. So I call it self-management. Is time is constant. There's no change in time. It's how we manage ourselves and how we become aware of where the time is going and how we make the changes.
So is this then about delegating and like having a look at, if the company has a KPI of X, Y, and Z to meet on a monthly basis, and is 80%, we always look at the old 80-20 metric. Yeah. Is 80% of my time driven towards that KPI, and therefore I should be delegating anything that's not Is that what we're trying to get to? Is it a fact that company owners is looking at what they do on a day-to-day basis, and does that contribute to where we're trying to get to? Is that the type of stuff that we're trying to look to?
Yes, becoming very aware of where each part of the day is going, and seeing is that when we kind of set the goals up front, we're trying to work out is this task directly, is this a task that's going to add me towards me achieving that goal, or is it this a lower value task that really isn't what I'm should be doing as the business owner? This is not what's going to bring me where I need to go. So sometimes there's some business owners continue to do some tasks in the business. They evolve, but they continue to do some things because of maybe issues like they don't have the team that they need. They don't have they feel that they can't trust some team members. Sometimes they're putting out fires and that takes up a lot of the time. So it depends. Where what we're trying to do is plan out the time. So to say, right, this is how you're spending it right now. If you continue to spend it like this, you'll still be in the same place in a year, 2 years, 5 years time. So what do you need to spend the time, and what things need to stop?
Yeah, I mean that leads into something else that I'm interested in, which is your leadership and team development point. Because when I think of leadership, I go right back to starting as an apprentice. Like, leadership was I had really good experiences and really, really bad experiences where the leadership was, the old school construction side. If you think about it, the roaring and shouting, get on with it type of approach. And then I actually had some really, really good company business owners as well that were really, really good with me in terms of developing me as an apprentice. So what sort of stuff are you looking at in terms of developing business owners into leadership and being able and to manage and develop teams?
Well, again, it's probably awareness of how they currently lead and what results that they're coming from that. And then I suppose it's what skills need to be, hard to this is like all of these steps that we're talking about here is they're in place to some level and to some extent in all businesses, or the business wouldn't be working, but it's trying to kind of identify the gaps between to what extent it is in place. And again, maybe helping the business owner to see, okay, some of the things that they're doing that may not be helping to attract and retain the people that they want to retain, particularly in the construction business right now. So it is about, and it's about communication. It's about how do we kind of enroll the people that's around us, and kind of to understand what needs to happen in order for, what does a good employee, one that you want, what do they want from an employer, and looking at it from that point of view, and working out what needs to change and how that needs to evolve. If we want to be a better team, we have to become better leaders. And that's kind of where our role changes as we kind of go from the owner of the construction business who's kind of working in it to more evolving to working on it and developing the team.
What's striking me here is that I'd say 90% of the clients that you probably sit with, I'm just having a random stab at this, but I'm guessing what's striking me is that everybody has this in the locker. They just don't give it time to sit back and think about, where am I going? Think about building out the financial dashboard. What do I want to achieve? What sort of a team do I want to build around? But you just don't give it the time it probably deserves. And I suppose what you're doing is just forcing that issue, giving them a bit of, suppose someone that you need to answer to, and you're asking the right questions to extract that information and have them thinking about it. And I suppose what's great here is there's a process to follow. Start here and work your way through to here, and at the end of here. I mean, there's loads more in this process. We probably won't have time to go through everything today. So, but I would like to pick out a couple. Like sales and marketing interests me, because sales and marketing in construction, especially when we're in, we're a roofing company, we're a commercial landscaping company, heating and plumbing, electrical, whatever it might be, and we're feeding a lot of our work into, say, building companies and larger construction companies. So we're in that B2B environment. Sales and marketing just doesn't it come into vocabulary a lot of time. Like, what sort of stuff are you focusing on there to help companies?
Well, and loads of businesses, right, don't really have a sales and marketing function as such in terms of like the work is coming in, and sometimes depending on what how busy that they currently are, how much attention kind of is going on towards, we'll say, choosing which tenders that they're going to quote for, or all of that part of it. I suppose with the sales and marketing part of it, there's two elements. First of all, it's like looking at the numbers and knowing, okay, well, what is our current conversion rate, and what for the work that we're putting into doing the quotes, doing the tenders, what percentage of those are we converting, and are they the ones that we're wanting to convert, and do we have a process in place so that, yes, somebody else can follow it. Sometimes in a business, it's either the business owner themselves that are very much involved in the sales and marketing, or if they have team members that are doing it, that is maybe information is in somebody's head, and it's a high risk to the business, maybe that person is fully responsible for it, or if those people for any reason were no longer working in the business, we're not really sure of what that conversion process is. So that's that part of it is there's no those sales are coming in. So what is the step-by-step process that should be in place from a point of inquiry right through to when the job is completed and beyond, and what are the things that need to be there consistently in order so that we have the highest chance of a potential of converting the client, but getting repeat business, so that there's a process for everything, so that part of it works. On the marketing side of it, again, an awful lot of the reasons why construction related businesses who haven't kind of thought through where they actually want to go and be is that they're saying yes to everything. So they haven't really decided, okay, well, who is my ideal client based on where we are going? And that's why that first step is there, the destination, the type of company that we want to have, what size, who are our ideal clients, who's a good fit for us. So they're not actually defining, well, who is it that we really want? And actually then how do we set up our marketing process to, who's our ideal client and where will we find them in the highest concentration? And based on that, work out how we're going to get in front of them. Does that make?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. I mean, knowing how many quotes that you need to do in order to have a successful win is hugely important. That means if we consistently, so let's say as a company, we know that for every 10 quotes we do, it turns over 3 jobs. We know if we turn over 3 jobs, the average value is 20K, and that's enough for us to make whatever it is, the required margin for that particular month, let's say. So what's the KPI there? Let's keep continuing to do 10 quotes for these type of customers. What do we need to do that? We need to go and find these customers and just keep the top of the funnel in. Like, it makes perfect sense to me, absolute perfect sense. I mean, how do you find the reaction then from companies when you start to talk about sales and marketing, and then talk the processes that generally don't come in the day-to-day operation of a business?
I think going back to the word awareness again, when we put the numbers in place, the numbers tell us the story of what's going on in the business. And sometimes when we look at it, then we can see, okay, well, all of these inquiries came in, but where was the follow through? Like, construction related business are so busy right now, and that sometimes they're maybe sending out the quotation, there's no follow up because there's just no process. And
yeah, I mean that one there is and I apologize for cutting in on that one, but that one there is huge. So we done this for our own construction company. We done a whole module. We brought a guy in that was an expert in this particular area, and one of the striking things I remember him telling me is, what's your follow-up process? And I'd say, well, I don't want to be, I don't want to be bothering them, they're busy as well. And he's saying, no, what's your follow-up process? And I said, well, I take it this, and I give them a call a week later and see how it's going. But the truth is, if I was busy, I probably wouldn't ever follow that up, because I was busy and I didn't want to be. But then he told me a metric that it takes 5 to 6 times follow-up to get a conversion. And I was like,
yeah,
that struck me at the time.
And it's interesting that whole point of, like, I don't want to be hassling them. That is another huge part of this whole process, because it is really about that whole kind of mindset. That if we have that mindset that we're bothering somebody, or that we're not kind of looking at what we do as serving this client and that we're of that benefit to them. And sometimes it's the business owner, but oftentimes we have people working for us as well who kind of, when things are busy, we're not kind of looking at, oh, okay, yeah, this is part of the reason we need to be following up. And that's kind of in that sales processes, conversion process part as well. It's like the psychology of how people make buying decisions, and how are we as a business sometimes holding ourselves back because that's the way that we're thinking, or we tend to kind of at a point self-sabotage ourselves and our business because of the way we think about sales.
Yeah, because I mean, there's so much in there, so much interesting stuff that like we didn't get really to go into the mindset thing, which I think is huge, and systems and processes and understanding. That would be one huge one. I feel is, if everything has a process, it means people can be replaced, which is, I think you touched on that earlier on. It's really huge important. If someone leaves us,
Yeah.
then does he leave, bring the system with him? Well, that's not good. Or if whoever it is that does our accounts for us, if she leaves it, does she take the whole system with her, and she's trained on the financial package and no one else knows how to use it and all that type of stuff? So that's hugely important. There's huge value in that, and if people listening want to figure out and get involved in that, I mean, you've got there's a business school as well, Aileen, is that right? It's attached to this.
Yeah. So Easier Profits Business School is kind of the training setup that's there kind of alongside it. And then I use that kind of training then to have coaching packages alongside to coach the business owner on actually implementing what's in the training. That I suppose just kind of the whole point of there's a thing called, we say that the know and doing gap. And sometimes we know the information, but we don't actually know to actually implement it. So when we want to have a particular result, whatever that is, we know, okay, well, this is the result that we want to have. So this is the plan that we create in order to be able to do this. These are the different things that has to happen with the business owner, with the business, with the sales, with the numbers. But the huge part of it is becoming the business owner or the team that's actually capable of implementing that. So that's a huge part of we'll say, it's coaching the business owner and the leadership team on implementing that training, because knowledge without implementation, nothing. We're still at the same point. So that's where the coaching works alongside the training school.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I just think having someone to be accountable to as well, like, that we as business owners, like we think, okay, I will get to that, but is it the higher priority as handing the keys over or handing the job over on the end date? Now that'll always take priority, or someone has left us, we need to refill that position. That's always going to take priority. But when you're accountable to someone, you feel like you do have to. I told Aileen I'll have that done, and so I'm gonna go and do it. And then it's just getting you to basically do what we know we should be doing.
Yeah.
If companies want to reach out, Aileen, and find out more about this, where can they find you?
Well, they can contact me through my website, which is AileenGallagher.com, or my email is aileen@AileenGallagher.com. That's probably the easiest way.
Brilliant stuff. Aileen, you've been very kind with your time. Thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you, Kieran.